Hey there, woodworkers. This is part 6 of our small bookshelf project. And in this video, we're going to complete the back and also complete the project. Let's go. The pieces we'll use for the back are thin enough that we can resaw and get 2 pieces out of one 4/4 board. So I've jointed one face and one edge just to make this run a little easier. And I've set my fence so that the blade will be cutting down the middle of the board. I'm gonna go straight from resawing to the wide belt sander. We were close enough to our thickness that I'm not gonna run it through the planer. And so I'm gonna start running it through the wide belt sander and come to our final thickness of 5/16. I'll joint one edge on each board. I need 2 boards that are 3 1/4 wide and 2 that are 3 1/16. So I'll rip those down to width. I ended up having an extra board, so I'll save this and use it for something else. I've set up a rabbet to cut 1/4 inch wide and 5/32 deep. But before I actually start cutting the lap joints on these, I need to just lay it out and decide the orientation that I want for these. The 2 that are slightly wider will be the outside pieces, and the 2 that are slightly thinner will be the inside. This quarter sawn sapele has very straight grain, so there's very little difference in each one. However, the boards that you're using may have one side that looks better than another for a certain reason. And in that case, you want to see the best face of each board. Once you've decided the orientation, I like to label my parts 1, 2, 3, and 4, so I can get them oriented after as well. We're going to be cutting some lap rabbets that will sit on bottom and top of each other. So I like to make a mark so that I can remember which side I'm putting towards the blades. I'm going to start on this right side of my first piece and make a little mark near the edge. That means that the next cut is going to go underneath on this piece, so I can flip it over and mark it, flip it back, which means that it would be on top on the right side, underneath on this left side, top on the right side, underneath on this left side. We don't need to cut the rabbets on the very ends because they don't need that joint. Now that I've got this laid out, I can run and then test my rabbet cuts. Once you've cut 2 of them, you're going to double check before you cut the rest. Lay those joints, one on bottom, one on top, and feel they're nice and flush, which means I'm good. If one of them was proud of the other, if one of them was sticking up, it means that our blade height might need to be just a hair higher. But this feels great, so I'm going to run the rest of these. What I'll do now is go ahead and lay my project down and start checking the fit of these back pieces. You'll line them up, match up the numbers that we had labeled before. So put the 1 on this side, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, I purposefully made these so that they will be a little bit short of the end. We want to allow there to be a little bit of space between each of these, about a 1/16 of an inch. So as I push these to one side, I can measure, and it looks like I have an 1/8 of an inch of space, but I would like to have 1, 2, 3 16ths. So I need to cut off an additional 1/16. If you want, you can split that and cut a 32nd off each edge. However, that's such a small amount, it won't be visible, so I'm just going to cut that off of one edge. I'll make a little mark just to remind myself that I need to cut 1/16 off that edge. The other thing that we need to do is match the lengths down below. The back pieces are going to be flush against this piece up here, and then beneath, we want it to be flush against the bottom of our lower shelf. So now that I have everything in place, I'm just going to take my pencil underneath and trace a line across, and that will give me a line to go and trim on the miter saw. So I'm going to go make those adjustments, bring it back, and see how we're looking. Before you attach the back, you do want to make sure that you do your final sanding on the faces, and then we're ready to assemble the back. We want to allow these pieces to expand and contract a little bit with the moisture in the air. So we're just going to shoot a nail into the back of the shelves to keep these in place. But that's all that we're going to do, and if you ever needed to remove the back and replace it, then you could pry those boards off and do that. So first thing is I'll reorient these. And it'll be easiest to start from the side that has the lip on bottom. And then we're just laying it on top as we go across. I've got an 18 gauge nailer, and I'm just going to double check. I've got 3/4 inch nails in here, which would be a fine length. I did get some 5/8 inch nails for this because it really doesn't need much of a nail in there. Now, we want to be certain that those nails are shooting into the backs of the shelves and not going to be sticking out or visible. So what I like to do is start from one side and work my way over. I'm going to remove this one temporarily and scoot this one up just so that I can see the backs of my shelves on each side. I like to take a pencil and then mark and just kind of eyeball a mark that lands in the center of that shelf. And I do that on both sides of this back piece. Then I use my steel ruler, line it up with those marks, and give myself a little bit of a line in the center where I want the actual nail to be. Now I'll slide it back into place. And as I've used this nailer, I've noticed that there is a line near the exit point that lines up with where the nail comes out. So that works nicely because I can lay that down and line it up with the line that I've drawn. And as long as I am, totally vertical and going straight in, then I can shoot that nail. Now, if there's a problem, I want to deal with it right now. So I'm going to reach underneath and feel, and I don't feel anything, so that's good. If you do feel something, then that means that there's a visible nail sticking out on the other side, and maybe we need to try to pry it up or adjust it. So I'll come up here. Now I'm ready for the next piece. So take the next one and lay it to the side. Bring this one over and do the same thing. So I'm going to slide it just enough that I can see the shelves on each side, and I'll go through and make my mark. Now, we want to create a little space here, so I'm going to use some steel rulers. And I've got 2 on each side, and I'm going to use those because that's about a 1/16 of an inch, which is about what space I wanted. And I'm going to slide my backboard so that it's tight against those. I will transfer my marks to the middle, so I know where to shoot. Okay, so I pull that snug. Now I'll shoot the nails. Double checking as I go, make sure nothing is sticking out. Now I can remove those spacers. And I continue this on across the entire back. On this last one, I notice that my space line is a little bit smaller than the others, and I do want those to visually match. So I'm gonna go over to the table saw and rip off a 32nd or a 16th of an inch. Bring that back, and that should give me the same amount of room here. Okay, now I've got plenty of room. So I'm going to make my marks as before. This time I'll kind of lean it up, make my marks over here, then tilt it back and make them on the other side. I'm still going to use my spacers. Rather than pushing this one all the way to the side, I'm going to use these spacers so that it still looks uniform. And even though that creates a space on the edge here, we won't see that from the front because it'll be covered up by a rabbet. But this will give our spaces a nice uniform look. Here's the fun part. You get to see how it actually looks from the front. Okay, that actually wraps up the back. I could go through and sand off these pencil marks if I wanted to. It's on the back, so it's not like it really matters, but you can do that. Once you complete that final inspection and touch-up, you can apply your favorite finish, and then you're done. This has been a really fun project. It's not a large bookcase, but it did teach us several different joints, several different cuts, and gave us some great experience that we could then put towards a larger or more significant project.